Hello, everyone. Welcome to Workshop for Moms / tonight Mama Genius Pub podcast. We are here for any caring one who cares for kids, anything at all. We just want to help support you. This is our monthly parenting panel from Workshop for Moms. Every month, we bring you a mix of speakers and experts live, covering topics of interest to parents. This is a community that supports the importance of work you're doing to raise kids. I'm Michelle DeKaiser, also the host of the Mama Genius Hub podcast. This is our December parenting pan. Today, our show is coming to you on Sunday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And next month, we'll be here at 5 p.m. Pacific time on January 28th. Otherwise, we meet the first Sunday of the month. Thank you for joining us where you live. I also want to invite you guys to stay immediately afterwards for our monthly women's circle that I run. It's an hour to calm, to focus you, to get you ready for that week. And we're doing this all together as women, similar, doing the work and healing the planet. It's a perfect self-care moment, and it's where you get that support from each other. Today's topic is helping your child find their genius, whatever age. And we have a full panel of experts from different disciplines, since each child is unique and our approaches may never be varied. Anything else you want to? Anything else? Our first panelist is Jenna Pontius Jacques, is a landscape architect specializing in sensory-rich, nature-filled play and learning spaces that nurture children's unique minds, bodies, and spirits. Bren Roberts is a business coach and creator of the Financial Freedom and Joy, teaching women tech skills they need to be successful as online entrepreneurs. While being a single mom of 3 adopted kids, we need all these expertise here. Vicki Bonecki is a former elementary teacher. She holds a master's degree in education with focus on how we learn. Her life took a turn when she developed cancer. Vicki became a naturopath to learn how to support the body's natural ability to heal itself. And we have some more teachers on the panel as well. Tracy Cheney, California State Art Teacher of the Year, has taught the creative process to thousands of kids as a way to access their unique thinking abilities, tend to get lost in the left side of the brain on the typical school day. Patrice Porter taught an early childhood program for 15 years that emphasized play and gardening. My son even took her class, which is continued for her Got Dirt Gardening for Kids program. She's the author of the book series, Bring Out the Potential of Children. And I'm Michelle DeKaiser, who taught school for 8 years, also got my master's in education. And then I stayed home to raise my 3 kids, which gave me a complete new, different perspective, which I've been writing about and podcasting about. So thank you so much for joining me today, ladies. Thank you for supporting all the moms out there who need to hear your wisdom and feel your care. You're not alone. We are part of this village. And as I love to say with Connecting Mamas is let's do motherhood together. Because you know what? It's so much more fun when we do this together. And that's the joy of bringing all these panelists together. So the first thing I want to do is we jump into this panel is I have this big word behind me, genius, right? But sometimes it has a different meanings. And I want to just make sure that we all define and kind of get that interpretation. What are we talking about when we really talk about the genius? Because sometimes we think about those kids that are like just brain geniuses. I don't know why my hand's still raised. Lowering that. But so I just want to kind of go around and how do you find the idea of genius zone? Because when we're talking about, in my eyes, of genius, it's about how we are getting into that flow state. So I'm going to throw that out. We'll just start by Jenna was already starting on mute, so we'll start with Jenna.
Okay. 2 words, authentic self. When a child gets in touch with their authentic self, which they are more in touch with than we are as adults. As children, they are very in tune to who they are, what they love to do, what feeds them, what drives their spirits, and who they are at their core. And that is what we all should be striving to nurture and sustain and grow so that they can grow into their authentic selves.
I'll pipe in there. I love that genius really comes into that zone of genius. And I remember even myself as a kid, just how, completely engrossed in what I was, just loving and soaring that. And so that's where these kind of really help. And we're looking at also when our kids do that and when they're engrossed in what lights them up. So genius doesn't necessarily have to be an IQ test or a standard of intelligence. Though looking at when we're lighting up where we belong, that's where the genius comes out. And that's where every human is a genius. And I love that emphasis on Michelle's podcast is just sharing that, and where we light up, our children lights up, and it lights up humanity.
Tracy, you're muted.
Something, Michelle, that you had said when we were discussing the topic of this show, and it's how much of a child's day is spent doing something they may not be good at all and having to learn it. And when do they get a chance to even be involved in what they're good at? Because, if you're at school 6 or 7 hours a day, it's pretty regulated what society has decided those topics have to be. And being the one teacher on the staff that doesn't teach what everybody else does, and always fighting to work with kids on their right side. If you talk about left brain and right brain and all of that, how much of school is spent. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It takes a long time to learn spelling and to learn to read and to do math and to do all those things. I think they're not natural to us, but drawing and spending time with your own thinking is what kids do when they're scribbling, even when they're small. And I've really seen things change because of the onslaught, I will say, of screens, especially with our kids that just turned 13. The iPad was invented when they were born, so they haven't had an experience without it. And are we able to break in as teachers to provide a whole different alternative? I think it comes down to parents.
I'll chime in here, and when, like, you think of the word genius, I used to think of it as the potential in a child, like seeing that potential or growing to your greatest potential. And that was always something that really fascinated me, is human potential. And after I'd been in that position where I could see the potential in the children, and when you nurture that and you just watch them blossom, it's like you can open a whole new world to them. And I don't know, that I think that's how we make for bright futures, when we can have the kids growing to their greatest potential and contributing to that bright future. So greatest potential or genius.
So true. I just agree with all of you ladies. I'm Vicki Beinecke, and former elementary teacher. I'm not doing that right now, but I did see, in my time in the classroom, a lot of potential, like you were saying. And I think as parents, though, especially, we need to be really in tune with what does your child enjoy doing? Be observant. Give them time to get away from the screen, like we were talking about earlier, and get out in nature, or either do art, or exposing them to so many things. That's when you're going to find their inner genius. That's where you're going to see it. And as a parent, to just nurture that. And, our roles as parents is to expose them to so many different things in life, to introduce them to a lot of things so that they can find their inner genius.
I love that so much. We're even getting some comments in the chats. Dr. Paula was saying in her school, she's had teachers, they actually have Genius Hour every Friday where they have centers with different tools and creative corners, outside gardening, etc. I think that is just what it's all about. Sometimes I think we get focused on, sometimes like we think of people like Mozart, who was a genius at piano, right? That they have these innate, he was this ability, and that's what we define as genius. But honestly, all of our kids have something like that in them if we start to foster it. And I think that that's what it's about. So I want to throw that out here is, what are some tips and ideas you have for parents and or teachers to how to foster daily activities or things that bring that genius out in each of these kids? Because we're born with something innately in us to come out and share with this world. I'm just gonna start calling on some people today. So like, Therese, let's start with you.
Great. I'm happy you did that. This is again going back to my experience working with the young kids, and what we used to do, we called them invitations, or I like to call it opening new worlds to them. And like my thing was always gardening, so opening the world of gardening to them. It's like if they haven't been exposed to different things, you don't even know if they've got any interest, and if it's something that will you know, capture their interest, and then you start to see them developing. And then we'd set out invitations, and it used to be like you could use it, like this was in a school program, but you could do it at home too, where you set out a station, like it could be on we had electric power and muscle power and making your own bread and grain and things like that. And so we bought in some different books along that line of growing your own grain. I had a hand grinder for growing for grinding the wheat and turning it into flour. And then we let the kids, you could also grind it by hand, but then you can put in your electric motor, and so they could see how it works, muscle power as to electrical power. And then you could take that fresh ground wheat and turn it into a loaf of bread. We had the bread maker, and but it's kind of, you pique their interest, and if they do show an interest in something and they start playing and exploring, and then you scaffold them to new levels. Let them do the exploring, and then you can start taking them to new levels and let that genius develop.
Anything to add to that, Tracy? You're muted, by the way.
Okay. So yes, I do have something. I think what's sad that has happened in our schools is that we think those programs are for little kids, and we are robbing our elementary kids of so much of a richness, that kind of richness from their experience, by having such a focus on, and it's not like teachers can choose not to do testing and all of this, but I just feel that, all the kids would benefit, all ages. And what has concerned me is going into preschools where they've even gotten rid of the art component. And of course, my antenna are going like this. And if you've heard other stories of mine in a school where I ran down the entire length of the hallway when the principal said, "No more art for kindergartners," and I was going, what? So we've made decisions for kids that you only actually can touch them at certain times with these things. And otherwise, I can tell you, like at 4th grade, girls, not saying every girl, but start closing down. I can't draw. I can't do this because I can compare. And that doesn't fit my grades in school, for instance. And it's just has just made me so sad. And where I've been able to fight for keeping some kind of art program for kids, because that's the fastest way to access your creative thinking, is by doing a doodle. Doesn't have to be anything fantastic. It can just be a pencil. But once you are doing this kind of motion between your hand and your eye and your brain, you are gaining access. And you know who really needs that training are the kids that we have in special ed groups where there's a lot of help for them. That's kind of a hovering kind of help to make sure that they're not failing or feeling frustrated. But in my class, that's when the aides all took the breaks. So, I'd come by and say, what are you doing? Nothing. And I'm thinking, well, really, we don't need to wait for a bolt of lightning because we can't guarantee that you're going to get it in the class session. Better to make some movement and see what comes to your thinking, because that's your right brain thinking. That's your genius. That's all of that you don't have access to in any other way.
And I'm assuming there's some nature play to go in with this.
Yeah, I want to tag on to that. So, okay, so I will start by saying that, not all genius lies right at the surface. It's not going to come out immediately. Sometimes it takes time and space and the ability to explore, as Patrice was saying, explore all sorts of different interests and things and situations. And so, to really draw out genius, I'm gonna echo Patrice. They need to be out in nature, absolutely. I'm gonna echo Tracy that it's not about the left brain. It's about the entire brain, the right brain for sure, because that's, like she said, where creativity and imagination lies. But when kids are out in nature, and this is from 0 to 110. Anytime we're out in nature, we're having these incredible multi-sensory experiences. And each of our sensory systems are located in different parts of our brain. So when we're having multi-sensory experiences, our entire brain is firing, both hemispheres. And that really leads to holistic child development, neural pathway connections, getting into that flow state. I mean, that's all like where really the magic is. And so like nature, that's like bottom line for me. The more kids can get out in nature, and it doesn't matter if it's, under a tree in your backyard or, out in a national park, both are equally valuable. But if they can get out there daily and as many times a day as possible, even if they're out there crawling around as a 6-month-old or a 3-month-old, any age is fantastic. And so, yeah, nature's the bottom line for me.
Vicki, what would you like to add?
Oh, I would just love to add, as they're exploring things and trying new things, they're going to fail sometimes. They're going to run across that failure. And I think it's important as adults in that child's life, whether it be parents or teachers or family members, aunts, uncles, grandparents, to educate the child. What is failure? Failure is just first attempt at learning something. It's a stepping stone on the path to success. And, when I was growing up, I wasn't taught that. So I had a hard time with that, and as an adult even. And so exploring and trying new things, they're going to come across things that are hard or challenging, or, that may not be their area, but you never know. Like Gina was saying, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper and it could be within that somewhere. And if they just give up without continuing to try, then they'll never really know. And it's an important life lesson to, give the child tools and methods to help cope and deal with failure.
I love that so much. But also we have a comment from the chat saying using books expose kids to different adults and children that they are in using their genius. They see it, they can achieve it. And that just brings us to the point that even when the 4 minute mile, before someone actually did it, we thought it was impossible. And so and then all of a sudden, months later, there's more people doing it. And so the more we start to do it. And so that's where I want to suggest also why we're doing this is, even if you're not good at something, finding them a mentor in that area that they can learn from. So if, like, for instance, my son, we've been trying to find other cooks and things for him to do, because I'm not the best in the kitchen, but he, can learn that from someone else. And so it's finding that out and giving them the tools to do that. And what would you like to add into this, Ren?
Part of one of the things too about genius and cultivating it, and I really like that, the underlying thing is when you see a child like actor star or a star or a child athlete, like, wow, that child is so amazing, like Shirley Temple or, all of those kind of things. And the bigger picture behind it is there has to be a parent that's nurturing that. If Shirley would have been in school, there's no way she would have gotten all of those jobs. And so when you have this parent, and it really honestly becomes like a parent becomes that child's manager. So now the parent, like, that's their job, is to really put their child's genius up. So there's definitely, most of us on here are looking at the ways in our small, not rearranging our life to have our child go out and be a superstar, though all the different ways that we can encourage and cultivate and look where it can fit into our life and our child's, though really it's that underlying, that parent is what's going to really help them blossom, or provide the nature experiences, or take them to the park, or buy them the art supply, or very nicely remove the gadget and prompt them to do something else. So that's the duality of, like, okay, here's our zone. And I also know if my kids were left to their own devices, they would never get off their devices. So that duality between the parent knowing we got to cultivate this genius because it's a muscle, and, left alone, muscles kind of deteriorate if they're not used.
I love that so much, Ren, which the idea of the superstar, even like you were putting it as someone who's famous in person, but honestly, that's the feeling we're trying to give our kids, is if they feel like their own superstar because they're in their genius. So that leads us kind of into our next question is, how do we cultivate that, or how do we identify some of those things that we can foster in them? What are some ideas you have for parents out there on how to pinpoint it and realize that it is something worth exploring, rather than just move on to the next thing to throw at them, or see what when do we start to foster?
Well, I think, and you see it in kids sports, if you've been around that, is, pushing kids. Some kids have asked to do it. Some kids are there because their parents want them to have that experience. And can we say that all things are equal? That if you are interested, I mean, really, reading is becoming, I feel like, a lost art. But if you're a child that really loves to read, can we make that on the same level as the kid who is the soccer star and who's got parents that are out there for the games on Saturday and Sunday or travel? Can we make with kids all things equal for them, and finding what works? There is something that sparks them. There is something that makes them happy. And can we put that at the same level?
I love that thought, Tracy. It actually made me think about my daughter who's in swim. Actually, both my daughters are in swim now because they want to, but the coach wanted to push my middle daughter to the next level. And we were fine if it came from her, but she was still not committing to going to practice enough during the week that I didn't necessarily want to pay financially for the next level, or the time in to drive her to those locations if it didn't come from her. I don't want it coming from the coaches. As soon as she says, yes, I'm all in, I will put the time in, but I'm kind of leaving that in her ball to do that. And so I'm gonna throw it right at you, Jenna, because I see you nodding.
Yeah. So focus on what do they love to do? We don't want to put our own expectations and our own hopes of our own dreams on our kids. And so it really, like you said, it really needs to come from them. Um, the other thing, which is equally important in my mind, is kids need white space left in their days and left in their weeks. And when we overprogram them trying to find that genius, whether it's piano or karate or horseback riding lessons or whatever it is, they're going to be so stretched, so thin that that genius is not going to come out of there because it's stressed out. And we are too as parents. So we need to leave them some white space in their existence so that they can be bored sometimes. And boredom leads to imagination. And oftentimes imagination is that door where genius is at. So white space.
I love that. And I know we hate hearing the words "I'm bored" and think that we need to fix it, but
Oh,
half the time I just walk away.
that's one of the
to do.
good things are about to happen. Give them some time.
Vicky, what would you like to add?
Well, I just totally agree with that. I think parents today, because they are so worried about or concerned about, oh, I've got to help my child find their way or find their niche or whatever, that they're overscheduling. And it is stressing everyone out in the family, the child. And so absolutely find that time, make that time in their schedule just to allow them to play. And just open play, just whether it's going outside and climbing a tree, building with building blocks, drawing, reading, whatever. They need that time. Because, when they get to be an adult, there's going to be structure and there's going to be, time constraints on their schedule. So we don't need to push them so hard when they're young. Give their brains time to develop and relax and enjoy life and just have fun.
You guys are just making me think with the free play that keep going through the chat, but also the white space gives you time to do some of the things that you need to do and like release some of that, and maybe doing the white space with them, reading a book or something that you enjoy doing and modeling that freedom with them. I'm gonna throw it over to you, Ren, to add to that.
Oh my gosh, so much that goes along with that idea and sourcing yourself too, that came out of it. As we're talking about scheduling and overscheduling, a thing for my daughter a few years ago during COVID times, she was fine and content being home and doing gymnastics that way. And then it was like, okay, I'm done with doing gymnastics in front of a screen. I want to go do it. So thankfully we were able to find things close to the house, even during those times she could do horse riding outside and things like that. Though then as the world opened up, she wanted to take dance classes. And so awesome, cool. Well, part of it being homeschooling is then she was able to have that be her PE time, and she wanted to take more and more classes. And I'm like, yay, you. And me, I'm like, okay, single mom, balancing all the stuff. So I was also like, where can it balance that this is what my kid really wants and desires, and where can it be a win-win? So I reached out to the wonderful grandparents to say, is this something that possibly, my daughter's really committed. I love how Michelle's like, I'll go all out when the kid's ready. So it was like, okay, kid was ready, everything's in. And this was also especially scary because it was in a very expensive elite dance, and we had to commit in September and pay for her elaborate performance in June. So parents, how many of you would that make a little nervous? Not just one day a week. She wanted to take 4 dance classes there per, like, I'm on the hook for like all this stuff. So it was like a lot of that. Okay. And then that's where usually I don't care if they really quit, though. I'm like, okay, this is a contract. Like, you're in this. So, and then asking grandparents. So then each grandparent committed that, okay, they 1 day a week, then they could take her. So then between 3 adults, we were able to support the kid to have this amazing dance thing that she did for her 5th grade. And so it's like looking at all these creative solutions, and that's where finding everyone. Oh, I love that. We got a comment here. It takes a village. It does. And also, be willing and sourcing yourself to lean on your village and not to lone wolf it. And, connecting mamas, you stand for that. Don't do it alone. Let's do it together. And that's what Workshops for Mom is here too.
That's what
Absolutely.
it's all about. Just getting out of the, I have to do it by myself. That I don't know when that even started, but somewhere it's like we felt this pressure that we have to like do
On moms.
intimacy person all ourselves and do all these things and make it look perfect. There is no perfection in this. You'd rather get it out there than be perfect. Which gives us, Patrice, what would you like to add to this conversation?
The idea that comes to me is the idea of conscious parenting. It's like we always want the best for our kids, but how much are we doing that conscious parenting? We're keeping in mind we want our child to grow to their greatest potential and like believing in them. Like I know in myself, when I have someone believe in me, I might not even be conscious or aware that I have that genius or skill within me, but someone sees it in me and they believe that you can do this, you can. And then, let them, like on the earlier comment I talked about where you tweak their interest and you set out the invitations, and as they explore and play, and then you can start to scaffold them to new levels, take them to new levels with that, and just always letting them do whatever they're capable of there, and not taking that away from them. Let them do it and develop their genius, but believe in them that they can.
I think, Patrice, you just really brought it home right now in terms of that believing in yourself. And it's what are some of the daily routines and things that we can foster in our kids to help that happen? And I know I've been for so long, I went through the morning miracles with the girls and we're trying to do charms and meditations and things, and they were fighting me on it. Finally, for the first time, what I did was I decided I was going to do a mini women's circle with them in the morning. 3 to 10 minutes. We're not talking a long time, but I got these cards. I am enough. And so we'll read one of these cards, and then just, even if we just get time just to light the candles and do a sentence each before they're out the door to the bus, it just sets the morning up. And so it took me quite a while to figure that out. And I was like, why didn't I try women's circle in the first place with them? But it's getting those ideas. So I want to hear what are some ideas that work for you guys in helping get that inner spirit out in them, and really getting that honed in and them processing this growth in them. I'm going to start with Vicky now.
Yeah, of course, my children right now are ages 32 and 30, so it's been a minute since I parented or taught. But being really specific with positive feedback, I think, is important, instead of saying, "Oh, you did a good job." Well, what exactly? Like if they're really enjoying something and you could tell that they're in the zone. Talk to them a little bit more about that. What are you really enjoying about this? And, what do you want to, how do you think this is helping you, or something along those lines? And, just paying attention, I guess, being a conscious parent, like we were mentioning before, and being aware and being in tune. Not that you have to do that every single minute of the day. We can't be perfect. There is no perfect parenting. None of us have come from perfect parents. We are not perfect parents. We just do the best that we can with the knowledge and the wisdom and the experiences that we have at the moment. But I think, giving specific feedback on certain things when you notice what they're doing and they're enjoying it.
I love that so much. It just focuses on the idea that we aren't perfect. No one's perfect, but we are doing the best we can and acknowledging that in each other. And that also, kind of just putting a little plug for the Women's Circle later, that's part of that as mothers, fostering that in each of us and that support, that we are doing the best we can, but how do we support each other in that truly? I'm going to tag along to Ren right now.
So, well, kind of like what I was saying before about the parents cultivating that and things like that. So, I think seeing what your kids are going for and just supporting it. And I've worked to do my very best to cultivate a yes mindset, like instead of like the, ugh, like, okay, yes, yes, yes. I had my own little ego thing when, as my little first grader wanted to make her own Halloween costume, and she was so into that, and it looked terrible, like I was dressing my kids in rags to go to school, though she just beamed that she had made her own costume. So I think part of it is just like that, letting them dress themselves, removing that part of the ego. Like, how much can you let them just express themselves? Like my daughters are super into makeup and spending all of that time, and I don't relate, and I cringe to go to the mall. So it's like, okay, like I'll do it. And also like training them, like, where can it be a win-win? I'm like, I am so much happier if you let me sit right outside of the Claire's store instead of going into Claire's with you. You'll have much longer time to spend in Claire's if I'm not having to walk there with you. So it's the balance. And then once she's made all her selection after like an hour, then it's seeing the little bag and then being that present, like, wow, those are great things that you selected. So that balance of encouraging, giving that space. And, she, in that sense, also, she's not tied to like being scared to go into a store by herself. And so, like, those things, and, scoping out, okay, Claire's looks safe and things like that. So it's just looking at all the different ages and stages, whether they're little or big. Where can we get more independence, them thinking for themselves, and supporting whatever their crazy ideas might be, that you let them have it, because that is what lights them up.
It's so funny you said that cringe idea, and you have that moment of cringe that you like want the product from your kids to be perfect. And that just happened is my son actually made, I went to a cookie exchange. He made the cookies from scratch, except he didn't add the frosting or things to them, and kind of ended up being that like the candy canes broke, and then he ended up doing this other thing. And all of a sudden I was like, I want to take these cookies. And instead I had my Christmas card. And what I did was, instead of like hiding from him, like, cookies made by Liam. And I proudly told everyone, because all of a sudden I realized no one else's 12-year-old kid made their cookies for them. And I'm going to honor that and support him in that and shine a light on him, because he did that regardless of how they turned out. They're pretty good. My husband gave him a hard time. I'm like, pretty good. And then as I was telling one mom as she was leaving, she's like, I'm going to open that one up for the road, and I'll have one of those in the car. And so I think it's when we change our mindset on that cringe aspect from it. Therese, what would you like to add?
Again, it's like, first you're exposing them to it, exposing them to different opportunities, and giving them that space. I love what Ren, so that they can, I'm using the word explore. I like them to explore, but you're there to support them, and when they've accomplished something, so you can take them to greater heights. You can take them, or bring in whatever they need so they can keep developing. And it might be something that is not your zone of genius. So, that you can recognize that, and, bring it in, whatever it is they need, so that they can keep developing and growing, and yeah, and just let them be kids at the young stage, and play and explore, and they'll start to develop what it is their interest, if they have the exposure to do that.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of bring up two sides of this. One, and Ren alluded to this, it's like, whoa, my daughter wanted to do this very expensive dance program, and I had to commit in September all this money for costumes and classes and all of this. So at one point, and I have this discussion with parents at school too, at what point do you say, you are committed, you have to do the whole season because there is value in that? Or do we say, it's just not your thing, it's okay? And so, there's that side of it. And then using what they really love as a disciplinary tool. So I've certainly seen that when we get up to middle school and the kids that are serving, the school teams, and then they are really good and they are, the parent wants to coach them or whatever. So they're on the weekends doing exhaustive stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed how fit these kids are. But come Monday, they're slumped on my desks. And I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. And I said, and I'm so can't help you on that. Those are choices. And yet, so we're just saying, wow, you're really good at what you're doing, and that could pay off sometime. And you seem to be wanting to do it yourself, but it's interfering with everything else, and that stuff. So I'm just curious where everybody feels like, yes, you're going to commit to this season and do it, or realize, okay, this wasn't the thing for you, let it go. And, it was whatever money, and be done with it. Or, which I've seen a number of times, kids that may be struggling in school, the only thing that exists for them is the sports at recess. They don't have standing within the classroom, but on the playground, they really do. They're very talented. But it becomes a thing of, okay, if you don't shape up at school, then we're taking that away. So those are some things to talk about where kids do have definite abilities. Do we take
And definitely just for you, what I do in my family with when they agree to do something is they have to finish out whatever, like, so if we pay for like winter and spring season of swim, you are done till you were committed to that. As soon as that season's over and you never want to do it again, you never have to. But you need to, whatever commitment when we sign up and pay for it, that's at least what we've done in our house. So like we've gone through soccer seasons where they only do the one season and never do it again. It's fine. We're like, just, but it also, I think also in that is doing the whole entire thing to see, is that, things get hard. And then it's that push through to finish something to the end of it, and then decide at that point when you get to a break point. Or I mean, again, that's just what I do. I don't know, Jen, if you want to add to any of this.
See, we're still talking about what we can do as parents to nurture genius. Yeah, so I have found myself two different types of moms. I've got twins, and each one requires a different parenting style. So one child, older twin, like she's been an entrepreneur since she was like 4 years old. She's got all sorts of business ideas. Not the other child couldn't give a rip about any of that. She's the free spirit. She wants an animal sanctuary, and she's got a whole list of animals, and she has her sanctuary all sketched out in plan form and whatnot. But they do require two totally different parenting styles. And so I think a lot of moms and dads have to do that as well, because all children are different. And so you can be present and aware of what your child needs to feel safe and secure and loved and nurtured and all of these things. It does require a different approach with each child. And I think when you can tune into that, it helps everyone grow, not just them.
Well, we're getting close to time, but so like final question of tonight, we've kind of alluded to this idea, and I don't even know if I put it on our panel questions, but we've talked about this idea that success leads to failure. Yet, in the school district and things, we're always like, let's get the correct answer, let's do that. So how do we change that mindset to bring in the genius and foster the failure that is going to come with this? Throwing it out to you guys, and I'm just going to let you guys go for it in whatever order you'd like.
Can we reframe the word failure?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh man, I just screwed up. I'm not worthy, all these things. If we can just reframe it as Well, you didn't try that.
Mistakes,
Yeah, mistake,
mistakes, you know.
experiment, exploration. There's so many other words we can use as a society to really call it for what it truly is. And that is just experimentation in our life's journey. Really, mistakes, like who learns from their successes? Kind of, but we learn so much more from those times that we tried and didn't get it quite where we wanted to be. So we'll try again another way. I mean, that is the creative process. It's not a failure, it's just a stepping stone. That's my take.
A learning experience. Those
Yes.
mistakes are learning experiences. Yeah, that's where we grow.
Well, I think all the teachers here would say we encourage that. you know, uh, you know, can back off from having the perfect kid, the perfect answers, the parents, having a quite a touch on the kids' work just to make sure they're getting good grades or what have you. But I feel like the kids, it's kind of like, your authentic self didn't create that or think that or something else. That I think there is great internal satisfaction. I still have to believe that after all these years of screens and everything else, that what you do yourself, what you come up with, which can be very surprising or it can be kind of mundane, but it's like, oh, I just love that you thought of that. And they're accessing that kind of creative thinking. And I think the kids come out so much further ahead and it'll pay off.
I agree, Tracy. I really do. And just, fostering the attitude that, that's just part of life. We're going to try things. We're not going to get it, quote unquote, right, or do it to the level of our expectations. But teaching children, how do we, giving them the tools to face those things when that happens, because it is going to happen in life. It's going to happen as they grow up, and being a good role model. And as parents, maybe we're still learning that ourselves and reflecting on that ourselves and thinking, maybe I should look into some tools that would foster my mindset and my thinking so that I can change that and pass it on to my children.
I think part of it too is looking at reframing what success really is and holding that success is happiness and joy and how kind of a human that they grow into.
I was just going to add on that it's all about growth. And when we try anything new, that we're first learning that first step. And I think also sharing our fears and things as we try new things and role modeling that aspect for our kids, even at this age. I'm going to go try this. Like I have a guitar sitting in the corner where I broke the string and need a restring, and I'm going to try to restring it for the first time ever in my life. And my kids are like, "Oh my God, your guitar broke." I'm like, "Well, the string broke. Yes, I was trying to tune it, and that happened." But I think as we model, as Vicky was saying, modeling that for, and I love this quote that she also shared in the chat, failure is the best part of life. And setbacks don't mean that they're any less intelligent or talented. It's easy to become frustrated and want to quit. Giving children the tools to handle failure can help them continue to foster skills. And I think that's also leads us into the idea of, do we let them stop when they have commitment to something? And that's something to discuss with your kids, but making that commitment and sticking through is part of that setback sometimes, because things do get hard. So we're just going to kind of end this with everyone getting a chance to give their final take on Genius. And also, if you do have a free gift to offer to the audience, that you'll get a chance to share that as well. And we'll just kind of go around my screen. I have Ren, Vicky, Tracy, Patrice, and then Jen, and we'll just go in that order.
Well, I stand for financial freedom and joy. We haven't talked too much about the finances, though I think part of that for kids too, as we talked a little bit about that entrepreneurial spirit that some of them touched upon. So, whatever that is, especially those entrepreneurs, foster that. Be excited if they want to sell something or create something, or, if they want to charge money. The other thing too is to not make money a bad thing. So many people are programmed negatively about money, so then that's their experience. So when we put the genius zone around money and success and things like that, and generally most people are flourishing when they do things that we love, and we want our children to be successful. So when you cultivate what they're interested in loving, that's also giving them the financial success and abundance that that you want to be setting them up with for life too, so that they can get all of their goals and wonderfulness. So my gift for entrepreneurs is a virtual gift basket, so that way you can have all of my latest trainings and tips. I work with from tech things that you could do, or virtual assistants, or maybe you need that mindset switch, so that duality to help grow your business, whether you're a mom, an entrepreneur, or just starting to get thinking in those terms. So I look forward to connecting with you all and staying in your zones of genius as well.
Vicki, you're next.
Sorry. So I once was a school teacher. Now I'm a traditional naturopath. So my feelings and views on finding your genius is being happy and healthy. Okay, you can't do what you're really meant to do unless you are healthy. So if you visit vlb.life, I'm currently offering emotional support during the holidays for those who, need a little extra emotional support. Maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe the holidays just are not your thing, and it's hard to get through that. So I'm here to help you release trapped emotions, balance you, all of that. So just visit vlb.life.
Well, one of the things, and it kind of struck me with Jenna, who's got twins who are completely different. I think really getting yourself understanding your child's learning style and what is important to them, and then being able to communicate to them in the way that they can hear is just so valuable. So one doesn't feel like she always gets me, and the other one's like, she never gets me, or split up with dad, I mean, that we need to be aware of that. And certainly, we've had training of that as teachers, but really in a classroom, trying to keep all of that going with everything else, we don't have that kind of time. And school really can't do this for you unless you're in a school like Montessori or something, where that is really the focus. But play, Jenna and I were chatting that play, when you learn something through play, you learn it so much quicker. And that we've taken that away from our children, I think is just terribly detrimental. They don't know what they're missing, but trying to get to it. And that's where I see the crippled kids at middle school, is taking that away when it was really important makes them not want to do it. So we need to, foster it as much as we can. And parents, let them fail, it's okay.
I think I was next. I'll go with the. You didn't mention that I was known as the gardening grandma, and because I do love opening that world of gardening to the kids. But I love for what gardening, that simple act of gardening, can offer. There's like tremendous life lessons, and independence and responsibility, and it connects them with nature and gives them a place. And like when I'm opening the world of gardening to the kids, I look to tweak their interest, and they can come at it from all different angles. That might be the reader that likes to read, and you can have them make a sunflower fort, so they've got a hideout where they can hang out in nature in their garden spot and read or do whatever. Or if it's a more active or a teenage, something really cool, giant vegetables that they can show off to their friends and whatever there. And always giving them time to explore and have that skill of being able to grow their own food and that wonder of nature, experience that wonder of nature, a seed growing into a full, food producing plant, and be the ones that are doing the harvesting and bringing it in to contribute to the family. And it's boosting that confidence in your child as they develop these skills, that they become a more valued member of the family or society when they're contributing and let their genius shine. And with the gardening, when they're bringing in the food and they're contributing to the family food supply. So if folks want to get started gardening with their kids, you can visit thegardeninggrandma.com and pick up the Garden with Kids playbook. It's a beginning spot.
Awesome. And I'm gonna echo what Patrice said, the value of nature and getting kids outside as much as possible. So I've been my work is designing children's play and learning spaces, nature play areas for children of all abilities and neurodiversities. And so I have seen firsthand and through my years of experience just how powerful daily interaction with nature is. And you can consider your outdoor spaces as collaborators in drawing out your child's genius. And you can actually tailor those outdoor environments to really support your child's sensory needs, their different learning styles, what they love to do. And so my free gift is a PDF that walks you through that first most important step of what is it that they love to do, and get some ideas, brainstorm ideas about what features outside in their play area can really start supporting them in all the right ways.
Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us tonight with the workshop for moms. And also this will be featured on the Mama Genius Hub podcast, which I have to say, genius for me also is an acronym. So you're already listening to the podcast, you know that it's Guiding Kids Genius. So we're looking really at that first category today, but this is all about empowering the genius within the mom, which leads us into the Women's Circle about to start in just a few minutes for those in the audience. I'll probably be editing this off the podcast, but we're actually going to dive into, it's funny because we're coming full circle because we're going to start this. We're going to be diving into that concept of money and releasing some of that tonight. So I think it all fits in coming through. And of course, you can always come to connectingmamas.com/gift and get your 10 ways to reclaim your morning in 1 minute, because it's the intention we set with that. And then how to put that routine and ideas together with your kids to create that morning of calmness that you've always wanted, because I did not have it before this. So we'll see you all next time. And thank you all for joining us today. And thank our panelists for coming.